Look closely. For the first time, we're seeing video of a woman retrieving a gun moments before she murdered her wife. She's now pleaded guilty to the crime.
Thomas says in the vehicle arson, a person believed to be Shakia Perkins can be seen on doorbell video in the vicinity of the fire.
A woman sits in front of camera, unaware that she has only seconds left to live. The lens captures everything: her face, her words, her final breath.
I knew it all along, you son of a bitch, and I'm finna beat your. Don't play with me. I seen that in my own eyes, and I'm finna dust his. And I mean that, you been lying, ho. You a liar. And I'm finna beat you now, bitch. Don't ever hang up when I'm yelling.
In an instant, a gunshot rings out, and Cornecia Butler's life ends before thousands of potential witnesses. Cornecia had spoken the truth just moments before her death, a truth that sealed her fate. But what was that truth? And how do we get to a point where a woman could be murdered while the world watched, despite every warning sign flashing red? The answers are more disturbing than you might expect, and they reveal a failure so massive that it cost Cornecia everything. Stay tuned as we reveal everything about this case. Drop a comment, and let me know what you think about this story. Welcome to our channel. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. Like and share this video to help raise awareness, and spread caution. Let's begin. Cornecia Butler was 31 years old when her life was stolen from her. She was a mother to 4 children who depended on her for everything: love, stability, protection, and hope. Those who knew her described a woman who worked tirelessly to provide for her family, who fought through every obstacle life threw at her, and who dreamed of a better future for her kids. Born and raised in Tennessee, Cornecia eventually made the move to Atlanta, Georgia, searching for new opportunities and a fresh start. Like so many people who migrate to major cities, she believed that change in geography could mean change in circumstances. She wanted more for herself and her children. She wanted safety, prosperity, and peace. Somewhere along her journey, Cornecia met Shakia Perkins. Shakia was 25 years old, 6 years younger than Cornecia, and their relationship began like many others do, with attraction, excitement, and the promise of companionship. They fell in love, or at least what appeared to be love at the time. They built a life together. They shared a home, dreams, and what seemed like a future. But beneath the surface, something was terribly wrong. Cornecia didn't know it yet, but she was entering a nightmare that would follow her for years. The relationship that started with hope would become the most dangerous thing in her life. And despite her best efforts to break free, the woman she once loved would make sure that escape was impossible. The red flags were there. The violence was real. The danger was growing. But like so many victims of domestic abuse, Cornecia found herself caught in a cycle that's nearly impossible to break. A cycle that feeds on fear, hope, and the belief that things might somehow get better. They wouldn't. By October 2021, the relationship between Cornecia Butler and Shakia Perkins had crossed a line that should have ended things permanently. What happened that month wasn't just a fight or an argument that got out of hand. It was an act of destruction so extreme that it left no room for doubt about the danger Cornecia was in. Shakia Perkins set Cornecia's Mercedes-Benz on fire. The authorities responded. Shakia was arrested and charged with multiple crimes: aggravated assault, criminal damage to property, terroristic threats, and first-degree arson. These aren't minor offenses. These are serious felonies that carry significant prison time. The courts recognized the severity of what had happened and set her bond at $70,000. But here's where the system began to fail Cornecia. Shakia posted bond. She walked out of jail and back into Cornecia's life. Despite the criminal charges, despite the evidence of violence, despite every rational reason to stay away, the relationship continued. And this is where people who've never experienced domestic violence often struggle to understand. Why would Cornecia take her back? The answer isn't simple, because abuse never is. Domestic violence operates on a cycle that psychologists have studied for decades. There's a tension-building phase, where the victim walks on eggshells trying to avoid setting off their abuser.
When you see time and time again, people are let out on these sort of crimes and they ultimately result in murder, there's a breakdown somewhere.
Then comes the explosion, the violence, the rage, the destruction, and finally, the reconciliation phase, often called a honeymoon period, where the abuser apologizes, promises to change, and convinces the victim that it will never happen again.
September 13th, 2021, a City of South Fulton police report contains allegations suggesting Shakia Perkins used her car to hit Ms. Butler's, attempting to push her off the road, then struck Ms. Butler's car again. The report indicates they were separated at the time. September 15th, 2021, a City of South Fulton incident report says Ms. Butler advised that Ms. Perkins advised she would come to her house to see if she had company. Ms. Butler advised that Ms. Perkins arrived and kicked in her door, cracking the frame.
Cornecia wanted to believe that Shakia could change. She wanted to believe that the woman she fell in love with was still in there somewhere. She wanted to believe that things could go back to how they were in the beginning. This is what trauma bonding does. It keeps victims tethered to their abusers through a toxic mix of fear, hope, and emotional manipulation.
A South Fulton police lieutenant says September 25th, 2021, Shakia Perkins allegedly set a fire that engulfed two of Ms. Butler's vehicles and damaged her house as well. South Fulton Police Chief Keith Meadows says Ms. Butler showed police screenshots in which Shakia Perkins allegedly texted, quote, "Soon you will be dead, and I'll be in jail, and that's fine," unquote. And, quote, "I'm going for first degree, not second degree. Stamp that."
But as the months passed, Cornecia began to see the truth. Shakia wasn't going to change. The violence wasn't going to stop, and staying meant risking her life. In 2022, Cornecia finally made a decision that so many victims of domestic violence struggle to make. She left. She ended the relationship. She told Shakia that it was over, that she couldn't do this anymore, that she needed to protect herself and her children. It's what everyone tells victims to do. Just leave. Walk away. You deserve better. But here's what most people don't understand. Leaving is the most dangerous time for a domestic violence victim. Statistics show that a woman is 75 times more likely to be killed when she leaves her abuser than when she stays. Cornecia was about to learn this the hard way. After the breakup, Shakia didn't let go. She couldn't accept that Cornecia had moved on. What followed were months of stalking, harassment, and escalating threats. Cornecia's phone lit up with messages that ranged from pleading to violent. Screenshots of these text exchanges later surfaced online, showing the extent of Shakia's obsession and rage. There's something particularly haunting about that fact, that the last day of your life can feel completely ordinary until it isn't. Cornecia had no way of knowing that November 16th, 2022, would be the day all her fears became reality. Shakia Perkins arrived at the home in East Point, Georgia, the home that Cornecia and Shakia had once shared back when their relationship was something other than a death sentence. Despite the restraining order, despite the history of violence, despite everything that should have kept them apart, they were together that day. What exactly led to the confrontation remains partially unclear, but what we do know is this. Cornecia was on camera when it happened, whether she was on a video call, streaming on social media, or recording for another reason. The lens was there to capture everything. This detail is both a blessing and a curse. It provided undeniable evidence of what happened, but it also means that Cornecia's final moments exist somewhere in digital space, a permanent record of her death. In those final moments, Cornecia spoke. She said something, the truth, as it's been described, that pushed Shakia past the point of return. Was it a declaration that she would never come back? Was it a threat to report another violation? Was it simply the wrong words at the wrong time to someone who had lost all control? Whatever those words were, they were Cornecia's last. The gunshot came suddenly. Shakia Perkins shot Cornecia Butler in the head inside their home. There was no hesitation, no chance for Cornecia to defend herself, no opportunity for escape.
South Fulton Police Chief Keith Meadows says Ms. Butler showed police screenshots in which Shakia Perkins allegedly texted, quote, "Soon you will be dead, and I'll be in jail, and that's fine," unquote. And, quote, "I'm going for first degree, not second degree. Stamp that."
In an instant, a mother of four was gone. A woman who had fought so hard to get away, who had tried to rebuild her life, who had done everything she could to survive, reduced to a victim of the violence she had spent years trying to escape. Emergency services were called. Responders arrived as quickly as they could, but there was nothing they could do. Cornecia Butler was pronounced dead at the scene. Shakia Perkins was arrested and charged with murder. The woman who had been arrested 4 times before for violence against the same victim was now facing the ultimate consequence for the ultimate crime. But the arrest came too late. The intervention came too late. Justice, if it can even be called that, came too late. Those children, ranging in age but all still young enough to need their mother, would never see her again. They would never hear her voice except in recordings. They would never feel her arms around them. They would grow up with the knowledge that their mother was taken from them by someone who claimed to love her, and that the system designed to protect her had failed. The video of Cornecia's death reportedly circulated online, as graphic content often does in our digital age. People who had never met her, who knew nothing about her life or her struggle, watched her die. This is the modern reality of tragedy. It becomes content, something to be shared, discussed, and consumed by strangers. But Cornecia Butler was not content. She was a person. She was a mother. She was a daughter, a friend, a human being who deserved to live a long, happy life surrounded by people who truly loved her. Instead, she became another statistic in the domestic violence homicide count, another preventable death, another failure of a system that continues to let victims down. After Cornecia Butler's murder, Shakia Perkins was charged with murder and additional offenses related to the killing. The evidence was overwhelming. The crime had been captured on camera. There were years of documented abuse, threats, and violence. The case against her was as strong as any prosecutor could hope for. The legal process moved forward, and in July 2025, nearly 3 years after Cornecia's death, Shakia Perkins entered a guilty plea to murder charges. She was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole. Fulton County Senior Assistant District Attorney Travis Thomas, who handled the case, spoke about the plea deal and the conviction. The guilty plea meant that Cornecia's family was spared the trauma of a trial, where they would have had to relive every detail of her death, potentially see footage of her final moments, and endure the defense's attempt to minimize or justify what happened. Life in prison with the possibility of parole. For some, that sentence represents justice. For others, it feels inadequate. A life sentence that might not actually mean life. That leaves open the possibility of eventual release for someone who destroyed an entire family. But here's the thing about justice in cases like this. No sentence will ever be enough. No amount of prison time will bring Cornecia back. No punishment will undo the trauma her children have experienced. No verdict will give her family the closure they desperately need. Cornecia Butler is still dead. Her children are still motherless. The system still failed. And Shakia Perkins getting locked up doesn't change any of that. Cornecia's family released statements following conviction, expressing their grief and their frustration with the system that allowed this to happen. They spoke about the woman they lost, not just a victim, but a beloved family member whose absence leaves a hole that will never be filled. Her 4 children are growing up without their mother. They're navigating adolescence and young adulthood without her guidance, her support, her presence. Every milestone she should have been there for, graduations, weddings, grandchildren, will happen without her. Every moment of joy will be tinged with the sadness of her absence. Every family gathering will feel incomplete. The conviction of Shakia Perkins represents accountability, and that matters. It sends a message that domestic violence will not be tolerated, that murdering your partner will result in consequences. But it doesn't represent prevention. It doesn't represent protection. And it certainly doesn't represent the kind of systemic change that could have saved Cornecia's life in the first place. Justice served after someone is already dead is not victory. It's a failure wrapped in legal proceedings. At the end of the day, behind all the statistics and systemic failures in legal proceedings, there was a person. Cornecia Butler was 31 years old, and she deserved so much more than what she got. She deserved to watch her 4 children grow up. She deserved to see them graduate, to celebrate their achievements, to support them through their struggles. She deserved to become a grandmother someday, to pass on her strength and resilience to the next generation. She deserved to feel safe in her own home. She deserved to sleep without fear, to answer her door without panic, to live without constantly looking over her shoulder. She deserved to find love that didn't hurt, partnership that didn't threaten, and companionship that didn't come with violence. She deserved to live. Cornicia's 4 children will carry her memory forward. They'll tell stories about their mother, about her strength and her love, and her determination. They'll honor her by living the lives she wanted for them, by breaking the cycles that took her from them, by refusing to let her death be in vain. Those who love Cornicia will never forget her. Her family will never stop missing her. Her absence will always be felt. But her story will also serve as a reminder of why this work matters, why we can't stop fighting to protect victims, why we have to demand better from the systems meant to keep people safe. November 16th, 2022 should have been just another day. Cornicia Butler should still be here, raising her children, living her life, experiencing all the moments that were stolen from her. Instead, we have the story, this tragedy, this failure. But we also have a choice. We can let Cornicia's death be just another statistic, another news story that fades from memory, another life lost to a system that doesn't care enough to change. Or we can let it be a catalyst. We can let it motivate us to demand better, to do better, to be better. Cornicia Butler. Say her name. Remember her not just as a victim, but as a person who mattered, who was loved, who deserved to live a long and happy life. She deserved better. She deserved to be safe. She deserved to live. And most importantly, if you're in a dangerous situation, please reach out for help. You deserve safety. You deserve protection. You deserve to live. Thank you for watching, and please take care of each other.